you've got some equity in your house and you want to turn that equity into making more money for you. Let's chat with Josh Stuart about options for you. Sometimes life just sucks, and sometimes it freaking rocks. We will discuss all the things from family and real estate to travel and just life in general. So take a seat, or don't, you do you, and welcome to the Lambadass Podcast. Welcome back.
Oh, thank you.
You look so nice. I already told you that, but I was like, oh my gosh, you got all dressed up.
I know. Candace is like, you're wearing a suit.
I love it. I love it. And see, it's like the saying, David wears the pants in the family. I just pick them out. I feel like it's the same thing with Candace.
Yeah. Oh, it was all laid out. It was all laid out.
I love it. We're going to let you wear the pants, but I'm picking them out for you.
There you go.
Thank you for coming back today. Seriously.
Thank you for having me.
I had hit you up and I was like, listen, we need to talk because people have so much equity in their houses that they don't know what to do with it. So I want to go down that rabbit hole of what people can do. The problem that I'm finding, and I'm sure you're seeing the same thing, is that people don't want to touch their firsts.
Yes.
Because they have super low interest rates.
Yep.
But they have $200,000, $300,000, $500,000 in equity, and they don't know how to make that money work for them.
Exactly.
So I'm a big fan of the idea of taking that money out, leveraging it, and having it work for you. So how can we go about pulling money out of the equity that we have in our current home, maybe not even all of it, but some of it, and reinvesting it in other places?
So what a lot of people are doing is seconds, home equity line of credits to be specific.
Otherwise known as HELOCs.
HELOCs. They are a great product to do exactly what you're saying. Touch your equity without touching your first.
Okay.
So keep that low fixed first. And then use the equity. Let's say you have $500,000 in equity. Take a $200,000 HELOC. Maybe use some of it. Maybe use all of it. It all kind of depends on what your goals are.
So go back to that really quick. So if you pull out and now I know the answers to these questions, but just in case somebody doesn't. So if I pull out $200,000, I don't have to use all of that. Can you explain how like a HELOC works?
Yeah. Yeah, so
because it kind of just sits there for you.
Yeah, it's very, very similar to a very large credit card.
Okay.
So if you have a zero balance, then you don't have a mortgage payment and you don't have any interest being accrued. There's no fees being accrued. There's no cost to having it. So for instance, for me, just in case if something happens, I have a $250,000 HELOC just sitting behind my first at a zero balance.
So if you have a bad month and you need to make your house payment, you can pull from the HELOC to make your house payment?
Yeah. Or if, something happens and I need a bunch of money, then we can draw on that and use it. Like if an investment opportunity comes up or something, and then I can pay it back. And the great thing is for the first 10 years on these HELOCs, you can go back and forth. So assuming you draw like $100,000, your payment is X.
Okay.
Let's just say then you file your tax returns, you get $10,000 back, or you get some bonus with your job, or if you're in commissions, a big commission. You take that money and put it to that $100,000. The following month, it'll immediately reamortize to now, let's say $10,000. So now you're only paying on the $90,000 that you owe, which is really, really neat when maximizing the efficiency of your interest.
I think that is huge. That is. And like you said, if the right opportunity comes up, you always have access to those funds.
Exactly.
Okay, so then walk me through. I have a zero balance, meaning I haven't pulled anything out on it, and I just have this HELOC sitting, and the perfect opportunity comes up, and I need 25% down. I can just pull from it. Is my lender going to be concerned? Are you going to be concerned? Let me rephrase this. Are you going to be concerned that I'm pulling that against the equity of my primary residence, or no, it doesn't matter? I just have to show you where it came from.
No, not at all. So you have to qualify. So you'll have to qualify for that debt if you're doing a purchase. There are investment opportunities, going into those programs that only qualify off the rents, so that gets a little bit more complicated. But as far as just the second's concerned, no, you just draw on it. It hits your bank account within 24 hours, usually, depending on whoever's servicing your account.
Sure.
And then you write a check, you wire it directly to escrow.
Okay. And then what are the downfalls of having a HELOC? Like what scares people to not pull out HELOCs?
So let's go kind of over everything.
Okay.
So there's a couple hot keys that are kind of scary. People just since 2008 have been like, oh no, I'm definitely 100% not doing that.
Raising my hand here.
Yeah. So it's interest only.
Okay.
So the payment is very, very low, but your only obligation is the interest for the first 10 years.
Okay.
The loan is 100% adjustable.
Okay.
Now you can fix it. A lot of times you call your servicer, you be like, I want to fix this interest rate. Mm-hmm. And for depending on the time and depending on the service, they'll upcharge you whatever interest you're at and lock in that rate. I'm not a big fan of locking in the rate, especially in today's market. There's not too many people that feel that rates are going to go any higher.
Sure. And even if they do, a good point that you brought up to me was even if interest rates go up, you're only paying on, and I say only very loosely, $100,000 or $200,000 versus here in Southern California, where you might have an $800,000 mortgage.
Exactly. So
the payment's small.
The payment is very, very small. So even on a $200,000 loan, 1%, if your interest changes by 1%, it's not going to, never want to see your payment go up.
Right.
But it's not going to be the end of the world that my payment now just went up $125 or $90 or whatever the math ends up coming out to. Yeah, it doesn't make a huge impact on the loan. But the benefit is when you hear so what the HELOC is attached to is prime.
Okay.
So anytime you hear the Fed raise rates by a quarter or raise rates, and they very rarely go above a quarter, every once in a while they do, or lowered rates by a quarter, mm-hmm. or lowered rates dramatically. A lot of times they'll go down real fast. Mm-hmm. Like in COVID times, they dropped dramatically. In 2008, they dropped dramatically. But you'll see these times where they drop dramatically, but whenever they raise it, they don't want to shock the market by raising it, so they usually raise it by a quarter.
Okay.
But when you hear those things, that will directly affect the following month your HELOC.
Okay.
So if you're at, let's say, 9% mm-hmm. on your HELOC, and rates go down a quarter, then the following month you'll be at 8.75. And so, also if it goes up a quarter, then you'll be at 9.25.
And are interest rates generally higher than what normal rates are for a mortgage?
Yeah. So right now prime is at 8.5.
Okay.
So that's kind of where you start. And then you take that prime rate and add it to your margin.
Okay.
So the margin will never change. It's only prime that will change.
Okay.
And margin traditionally is what the bank determines what your risk is.
Oh, okay.
So your credit score is 680. You're at 80% loan to value. These other factors, your debt to income ratio is this. Okay, well, we'll set your margin at 2%. Mm-hmm. And so now 2% plus the 8.5%. So now you're at 10.5%.
Okay.
For your rate.
Okay.
So, and then in other scenarios, well, you're at an 800 credit score, you're at 40% loan to value, mm-hmm. Combined with both loans, mm-hmm. then maybe we'll just either have no margin or even, I haven't seen this in a while, but in some cases when they really were trying to get debt, they were doing negative margin. So you'd be like prime -1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I haven't seen that in a while. But in prime -1, in that scenario, then it would be 7.5 would be your interest rate.
Okay.
In today's market. And if the Fed lowered rates by 1%, then all of a sudden you drop down to 6.5%.
Wow. Okay. So you said that you can draw on it for 10 years. Mm-hmm. So after 10 years, if you never draw on your 250, we'll just use you as an example. If you never draw on your 250, then what happens after 10 years?
You can call and try and extend it.
Okay.
Or just close it and then reopen a new HELOC.
Okay.
Because at that point you can't draw on it anymore. So if you're at a zero balance, then it's like it never existed.
And what if I did pull some money out and it's been 10 years? Can I still pull more, or no, that's still it?
After the 10-year period, it re-amortizes itself to 20 years. And now it's a 20-year loan that you have to pay back.
And that includes, it's not just interest, that also includes the principal that I borrowed.
At that point, yeah. It's just like a 15-year mortgage or a 20-year mortgage, 30-year mortgage. Standard is 30-year mortgage, but and it is a 30-year mortgage, but for the first 10 years, it's interest only. And then after that, it's a 20-year to finish the loan.
So to avoid any craziness, we want to get that paid off within 10 years.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
that should be your goal. And any interest-only loans, there's some interest-only loans that are first as well that aren't HELOCs.
Right.
But but yeah, any kind of those loans, you're going to want to really focus on either the principal, getting rid of it, or just knowing that, hey, my payment's going to jump up after the 10 years. So plan for that. Either do a new HELOC and redo that debt, or just be prepared for a much higher payment to now pay it down.
Can you ask for an extension if you have money pulled out against it?
Yeah, a lot of times they would either do an extension or just do a new HELOC for you.
Okay.
It's easier for them, instead of doing an extension, is just to do a new HELOC for you, because there's like the truth in lending and the note and all those that stack of documents that you sign.
All the paperwork.
It's easier for them just to send you out a new HELOC and restart that amortization again.
So then, just to kind of put that all in a nutshell, if we decide that we want to pull out a HELOC on our property, and I have $100,000 just kind of sitting in the wings waiting for something to happen, I can then, as a consumer, I can go and look for another property, and I can put this $100,000 down, which, by the way, I think everybody gets really concerned because in Southern California, you're not going to put $100,000 down on a rental property. Or the chances of you putting it down on a rental property are very far and few between, because our property is so expensive here. So if I wanted to invest that money out of state, which I'm a huge fan of,
yep.
If I wanted to invest that money out of state, then what I could essentially do is use the overage and rents that I'm going to be getting on that property in the meantime, excuse me, to pay back not only the interest, but also the principal of what I'm borrowing.
Exactly. And I mean, to make math easier, let's just say your payment's $1,000 a month, and then now through rents, you're paying $500 in principal every month, and that's slowly going down. Every month, that $1,000 is going to get lower and lower and lower.
That's right.
Because of the principal payments that you're paying. So if it's a $100,000 loan and you pay $500 to the principal, then it's now $99,500, and now you're paying interest on that, and so on and so forth every month. So after a few years, if you're doing that kind of program, then you can really attack that principal balance.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then if you're setting yourself to, hey, this is my payment that I'm throwing towards my second, the principal that now, a fixed payment that I'm setting to the second from the rents, then the amount of principal every month is going to go up by a little bit, because now you're paying less and less interest every month. Well,
and at the end of the day, too, you're not only just paying off your HELOC, but you're also paying down on another property that you own, right? So you're paying off that mortgage. You're not. Your tenant is essentially paying off that mortgage as well. And then you get all the tax incentives and everything else that comes.
Schedule E, take a loss on there, all
the depreciation value, like all that stuff that you're talking about.
Just huge advantage to when you file your taxes in California, which you need every little bit. Yeah,
no kidding. Don't come after us, please. Just, we're doing the best that we can.
And another good thing is, if you do, let's say, the $250,000 here, if you have that kind of equity.
Sure. And a lot of people, I think, do, Josh.
I think so too. And I think after the end of this year, I think this is going to be a great year for equity as well.
I agree with you, because we bought our house in 2016. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
We bought our house in 2016, which was an election year. And it's funny because I was like, this is going to go either really good or this is going to go really bad. Yeah. And luckily, it went really well for us.
Yeah.
So I'm a big cheerleader when it comes to buying in election years. I think that that's probably one of the better times that you can buy, because the market is considered somewhat volatile. They're not really sure where things are going to go and how things are going to end up. But at the end of the day, people still need places to live.
Yep.
So,
and we've seen people sitting on the sidelines for the past year and a half. And
yes, we have.
And we're seeing more and more offers being put on properties. And as the Fed reduces rates, which they've announced they're probably going to reduce 3 times this year.
Yep.
That's just going to keep getting worse and worse all year long.
Did they say when?
No, but China just reduced their rate 2 days ago.
And do we normally follow what China does?
It depends, kind of depends. So that was kind of an interesting day to see if the Fed would make an announcement and say they're going to do theirs as well. But we probably won't be able to tell until March. March is probably when they're going to announce if they're going to lower or not.
Our federal government has a lot of shit going on right now that they need to worry about. So I get why they're. But anyways, what were you going to say? I'm sorry.
But yeah, so if you take that $250,000, let's say you buy a property in Mississippi or any other state, and you're only buying an investment property for $180,000, then now all of a sudden you're making a cash offer, which to the listing agent is, just one less headache to deal or worry about a loan or anything happening with a loan or
Yes.
the buyer. It makes it so much easier, and you might even get a little bit better deal than
There, I will also say, because I've talked to you about this before, I'm looking at investing in certain areas of Pennsylvania.
Yep.
It was funny today. I saw a video. I'm trying to think who posted it. I don't remember who posted it. This is not anything political. This is just matter of fact. They said you need to be buying investment properties in red states. I forget who it was, just because red states tend to generally favor the landlord over the tenant. Example, California, we have horrible landlord laws. We favor the tenant, and they're only getting worse. We favor the tenant so much. And I get there are shady people out there, by the way. So like these laws, I have to believe in my heart of hearts, are put into place to help protect those who maybe don't know any better or whatnot. I have to believe that, because I can't believe that everybody's just a piece of you know what. But anyways, I digress. So they were saying to buy in red states, for example, because when you invest there, they're a little bit more for you. Anyways, Pennsylvania is not a red state. So David's like, no, we don't want to buy there. However, there are certain places, and there are probably places in all states that are like this, aside from California and New York probably, where you can pick up a property for like $35,000, $45,000, $55,000. I had a girlfriend of mine who was actually here before you. She owns property in Arkansas, and she bought her property for much lower than $100,000.
Yeah.
Putting some work into it, and is going to get a renter or either sell it. She's not sure what she's going to do with it just yet. But the other thing that I would think people could do is owner financing. I think that that's going to be huge. I was talking to you about a specific area one time, and I was telling you, hey, this house is $65,000. If I put down 30, can I get a loan for 35 grand? And you were like, yeah, no, ma'am, you cannot.
Yeah.
Can you tell me why I couldn't get a loan for 35,000 if I was putting half down? There's really essentially no risk to the bank.
Well, the big problem you run into, so like let's say you want to buy a property in California, right? Mm-hmm. And let's just say your loan amount's $400,000.
Okay.
You put 20% down or whatever you put down. There's laws that protect you as a consumer where I can't charge, it's called Section 32, I can't charge more than 5% total fees to you.
That 5% is based off purchase price or loan amount?
Loan amount.
Okay.
So if you have a $500,000 loan, I mean, we never get up to these fees, but they're just in place.
Right.
If you have a $500,000 loan, I cannot exceed $25,000 in total costs. So title, escrow, processing, underwriting, points, buy downs, all these things.
Okay.
Which some people, especially in COVID era, I had people like, I want a 1.99% 30 years fix, and I don't care what it costs me. I'm like, well, that sounds great, but it doesn't make sense. And there's laws in place that be like,
this is not allowed.
This doesn't make sense. I can't buy your rate down by 4 points or 3 points or whatever.
Okay.
Whatever it ends up being. A couple occasions I was able to do that because their scenario was so good.
Sure.
So, but didn't financially make sense, but he wanted that one in front of his rate.
Got it. So your thing, that's amazing.
So now translate to that to when the loan amount's $30,000.
Yes.
So now title, escrow, processing, and underwriting can't exceed $1,500.
Okay.
And
that makes sense.
And so at that point, it just makes it hard to get financing for it. And that's when the HELOC will come into play for you. It's like, okay, I'll just take the $60,000 from my home, and then I'll just put it down.
I'll buy these 2 properties or 1 property or whatever. Mm-hmm. And, granted, they do need to be fixed up. Like, don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. A lot of times I would assume, I haven't done this yet, but I'm really trying to get Sweetie Pie on this bandwagon with me, because I do think that there is a place for this. Because if you think about it, if I take $60,000 and I invest in a property and fix it up for $60 grand, and then I charge somebody $1,000 in rent, I mean, that's not too crazy of an investment in my opinion. And then if I get a good commission or whatnot that comes in, I can just throw it towards that and call it a day. It's kind of like just getting an advancement on that, if you will.
Exactly. And that's why you see these crazy deals. Like, why isn't everyone just picking up these properties?
I know.
They rent for $900 or $1,000 and you're buying it for $60,000. Well, it's because no one has $60,000 just sitting somewhere.
I agree.
To put that down, because they can't get financing for it. Well, no one will lend. Usually, usually the smallest loan amount that they'll lend on is usually $100,000. They can go down to, like, with exceptions, to like 90.
Sure.
But then you have to make sure you don't go into the predatory lending laws, that we just went over. So yeah, so it makes it tough. So even if they'll be like, yeah, we'll do 90,000, but then your title and escrow is X amount of money, it's like, well, now it doesn't make sense.
So what I was intrigued by was seller financing. And that's something that, I don't think we've heard of too recently. It's actually funny. I've actually done 2 recently, seller financing. Yeah. And I think that it brings a good advantage to really everybody. Now, are there shit scenarios? Absolutely. But here's the thing. So if I come to you and Candace and I say, hey, you guys are selling your property for $50,000. I've got 20. Will you finance me for the next 10 years, this $30,000, you can do interest only. The cool thing about seller financing is you can really do whatever you want. Like if you guys agree, escrow just writes up the paperwork and does the note and the deed and everything.
Depending on the state.
Oh,
so you got to be real careful because there's certain lending laws that you can't exceed a certain interest rate.
Okay.
So like Texas, I believe, and this is just off the top of my head, but I believe it's 8.99.
So you can't go higher.
9.99.
What if interest rates are at 12%? You still can't go higher than
the loan.
Oh.
So that's one of the big things. So there are HELOCs. They're called HE loans. So they're a fixed rate.
Right.
Second. But for investment properties.
But what if I'm going directly to the seller? The seller doesn't have to abide by that, do they?
Yeah, they usually have to abide by all the truth in lending laws that are in place.
Because they're essentially going to be a lender. So you have to, okay. Yeah.
And that's how you can get real in trouble. So make sure that the documents are reviewed and in place.
But even 8% on $30,000.
You're not going to get that anywhere else.
And that's the reality of it. And then if I can get somebody in there. Now, here's the other thing that I want to make sure that I say. Do not spend all of your money going towards the equity and everything and trying to get that paid down. You want to have reserves because there are going to be months that property sits empty. I will tell you, though, the insurance guy that you set us up for our Mississippi property, they actually have a program where if the house sits vacant, they will cover your rent for you. Yeah. Well, I don't know if they cover their rent or if they cover the mortgage. 2 different things, right?
Yeah. I believe they're supposed to cover your rent, but I could be wrong.
Well, either way,
you're good.
It's a win-win.
Yeah. For 12 up to 12 months. They should be. That should be in there.
I think that sounds about right.
I think we talked about, I'm like, get this.
Yes.
Get this program because it might be a little more expensive monthly, but if anything happens, then you're 100% covered.
It was, just brilliant. So if you did something like that on these properties, that would really, it just seems like a very conservative investment. I tend to be, when it comes to investing, it's funny, David's actually way more conservative than I am, I'm like, this looks like a great deal. Like this makes sense numbers wise. And I've done all this and that. I think the whole idea of it just scares David. Like when we bought the Mississippi property, living in California, that's very daunting for a lot of people. And I totally get it.
Yeah.
Now, the cool thing, and I'm sure there are other states like this, I just am unfamiliar. But the cool thing about Mississippi is the people who manage the properties, they have to be licensed.
Yeah.
So I love that because in the state of California, essentially anybody can property manage. I can manage my own properties. I can manage your property for you if you wanted me to, and I can charge you a fee for it, where in Mississippi, you have to be licensed.
Yes.
So I think that's great because they know the rules and the laws in and out. If I need to get somebody out quick, they know exactly what to do, how to do it, and they're filing all the paperwork and whatnot for me. So to me, having a property manager is just a no-brainer. So when we bought that property, David was like, well, what about hurricanes? They get hurricanes all the time. And I tell everybody, yeah, they get hurricanes like we get earthquakes.
Yeah.
So they're asking, oh my gosh, I don't want to invest in California because of the earthquakes. And all us Californians are like, really? Yeah. And by the way, I hate earthquakes. So that's just more of a personal thing than anything. But to me, like one massive storm through and, your house is Lord knows what.
Well, they see the news and like...
Exactly. They see like Katrina.
Like when we had the fires, like is everyone,
that's true.
Is everyone's house on fire right now? Like,
and you're like,
people from out of state check in on me.
That's true. That's a good point. And I also think like, when Katrina happened, like we saw how horrible that was and how devastating that was.
Yeah.
But not all of New Orleans like had that all done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I get that. The biggest threat that we have in Mississippi, just for anybody who's curious, is we have siding on our house. I don't know what's up with my voice today. We have siding on our house. What'd you say?
Been talking a lot, probably.
Yes, just a little bit. I have my tea, but it's not helping. But we have siding on our house. Brick in Mississippi, you actually have lower insurance premiums because brick is less destructive, if you will, or destructible than siding. But people forget that things are different priced than than in California. To replace the whole siding on my 2,000 square foot house in Mississippi would cost me like $2,500 or something like that. Whereas new siding in California would be like $10,000, please. Plus you're going to pay me $30,000 to put it on. Like, it's crazy. So everything depends on the price of things depend on where you're buying too, not just the houses, but fixing it up and replacing flooring and, all those things.
Yeah. And to circle back to, you don't want to put all of your money into the HELOC. Just remember, you can draw on it the next day.
Oh, that's true too.
So if you did put all your money in, let's just say some kind of family emergency happened, or heaven forbid, death in the family, or
you need to replace carpet,
roof leaking, or something crazy happened, you can just draw on that second and have that money within 24 hours.
So then it actually might be a better deal to do that. Yeah,
there's actually YouTube videos online that show where you cycle all of your bills through your HELOC, and it's actually you save money that way.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. They're kind of long, but yeah, it's kind of interesting. But yeah, you constantly make your payments to the HELOC, and you use your HELOC to pay all of your bills, and it's a way to pay off your debt faster. Like if you took the HELOC, paid off all your credit card debt, use that, and then did those same payments that you put to your credit cards, now to your HELOC. Not only is your HELOC a write-off, but also you can pay off that HELOC faster than you'd be paying off your credit cards.
Because it's just interest only.
And it re-amortizes itself every single month, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. The problem with that is most consumers are going to go and charge back up those credit cards because they've paid them off.
Yeah.
So that's a cute thought process, but
then now you have a HELOC and now you have new debt. So you definitely need to be careful with doing stuff like that.
Okay, so my advice, I would prefer it if you would purchase more properties. And again, I only make money. I shouldn't say this. I was going to say I only make money if you buy in California. That is not true. If I refer you to another agent, I actually have to tell you a story. If I refer you to another agent somewhere else, excuse me, then I can get a referral fee. So, but the referral fee is generally very low compared to what the agent who's actually selling your house gets.
And every agent you've referred to, like my family that has moved out of state and has been amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. I've had members not use them and use someone else, and they were not that great.
I've had that happen with family too, family and friends actually. My sister, bless her heart. I know real estate agents hate this, so I'm so sorry if you're a real estate agent and you're listening to this podcast right now. But my sister will not work with anybody who's not paying me a fee, a referral fee. And it's funny because I didn't tell her to do that. I actually was like, hey, just let me refer you and then we're good. But my sister, sometimes she jumps the gun, bless her heart. And she'll call somebody and she's like, oh, by the way, I'm not seeing this house with you unless you send my sister your referral agreement. And they're like, wait, what? Your sister didn't even make this connection. But my sister's very loyal. And if you do not give me that referral fee, she'll call me and be like, hey, I want to see this house right now. Who do you got?
Yeah.
So luckily this last time when she bought in Port Orchard, they live in Washington State. When they bought there, do they live in Port Orchard this time? I forget. Anyways, when she bought there, I referred her to my girlfriend, Becky Barrick. And I'm like, use Becky. Becky's amazing. Becky is me. So you're going to love her because you love me. And Becky and I are very similar. Anyways, it worked out and Becky paid me a referral fee. So what I'm getting at is if you buy in the state of California, naturally I make more money. So while I don't want to push you out of California, if it's better for you to live here but invest in other places, I'm here for it. You have to do what's best for you. And I've always ran my business in doing what's best for the consumer. It's never about me. It's never about what can I get. It's how can I help you? Because if I can help you get what you want, then I will in turn get what I want just by karma alone. Exactly. So I'm going to sit here and help you do, and I'm going to show you how I bought my house in Mississippi. I'm going to tell you why it doesn't bother me that it sits there and I just get essentially mail money. Every month, generally around on the 10th, that payment comes through from my renters. And I have great renters. because I have a great property management company that, shout out to Freddie and Laura, who take care of all of that for me. Like, they are amazing, and I don't have to worry about it. They go through they send me all the information when we're looking for a new tenant and what's their credit score, were they on time for payments, how were they? But when you get a good tenant in there, I literally told my tenant in there right now, I will not raise the rent on you if you stay and continue to make your payments on time. You want to renew, they signed a 2-year lease. You want to renew after those 2 years, I'm not raising the rent. You need carpet replaced after 7 years, we're going to replace that carpet and you're going to still pay the same rent. I'm going to be just as good of a landlord to you as you are a renter to me, because when I was a renter, I felt like David and I were really great renters. We took care of that house like it was ours. Like, we loved it. We fixed things. We never asked for anything, and our payments were always on time. And he was a great landlord to us. So you give what you get.
Yeah, 100%. No, I've been blessed with the Chino Hills.
I know. I was going to say, you're a landlord in California. How is that?
We haven't had any issues. I was concerned in COVID when, hey, you don't have to pay your rent and you don't have to verify anything. Just don't pay your rent. And it's like, well, my mortgage is still due. You know what I mean?
I would have shit my pants.
Yeah. So I was a little nervous, and my tenant, she lost her job. Unfortunately, she got laid off, and we didn't even know about it until later. I mean, we don't talk to her on a regular basis,
sure.
But later we were chatting about an issue with the property, and she brought it up. But yeah, she even lost her job, but found a new job, but paid her rent every month. So she's definitely below what we could rent it out for. But when you have a good tenant, it's just it's nice just to keep it there. I'm sure she appreciates it, and
I agree.
We appreciate having her there. I believe she's been there for 4 years. So we've been blessed for I think the lowest a tenant has been in that property is 3 years.
Really?
Yeah.
How long have you guys had this property for?
Since 2004.
Oh, really?
Yeah, not as a rental the whole time, but yes, it was me and Candace's first property we purchased back then.
Yeah.
Cute. Kind of crazy. Life happens, and every time we've brought one of my daughters home from the hospital has been to that condo.
Really?
Yeah, for whatever reason, we've been living there at the time where we've had all three.
Okay, which is hilarious because for those of you who don't know Josh, he actually moved to New York. This was right after Audrey was born.
Yeah, Audrey was
that's his oldest.
2.5, so she's my oldest. So she was born, and we brought her home to the Chino Hills property, and then we bought in Ladera, and then we moved to New York in 2008, and then when we
What'd you do with the Ladera property? Did you keep it and rent that too? You sold it?
Sold that one. And then when we came back, our tenant since 2005 and 2008, he was leaving literally as we were looking for a property to rent when we came back. And so we're like, we'll just move back into the Chino Hills property. And then that's when we had Izzy. And then we were just kind of comfortable in the Chino Hills property. And then so we had Juliet in there. And then shortly after Juliet was born, we moved back to Ladera. So
crazy. I love that. That was the hardest part, actually. It's funny, when we had the rental in Chino Hills, we were living in the rental. We were renting because we had lost everything in 2009.
Yeah.
But I moved in there when Carson was a baby.
Yeah.
And we moved in October. He was born in May. So he wasn't even 6 months old yet.
Yeah.
And when we left, Josh, I cried. You would have thought that that was my house that I built with my own 2 hands. It was, I cried, and I'm like, my baby learned to crawl here. I was just a disaster.
So many memories.
And it's like, oh my gosh, but I get to take all those with me. It was great.
Yeah.
And now where we live, can you imagine what that's going to be like? Oh my gosh. I'm like, you're going to take me out of here in a body bag.
I know. Yeah.
Although Connor's like, you're going to sell the property to me, right when you guys want to sell.
Keep it in the family. Yeah.
And I'm like, well, if you want to stay in California and you want this house and Dad and I don't want or need it anymore, then yes, I will sell it to you.
Yeah.
My kids are going to fight us for it, I know. But so just to really quick circle back. So in my opinion, it's better to invest, take that HELOC money and invest maybe out of state, pick up a couple different properties and pay that HELOC off sooner. I love the idea that you said that you can pull against it if you needed to. So if there was anything dire that came up immediately that you needed to fix or whatnot, you would have that money right away.
Yeah.
But essentially, if that's a paid off property, all the money that you get in from that property is going to be
just go straight to that second.
Yeah. But even once the second's paid off, yep. I mean, that's just pure mail money that you're getting in every single month.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a great great way to leverage, excuse me, to leverage your equity that you have in your current home. And they won't let you pull all the equity out. Is that correct?
They can, if you have really good credit, you can go up to 95% loan to value.
Oof.
Yeah. But the rate is really ugly. And then they like to see below 80%. So the rate's not that bad below 80, but once you go above 80, the rate starts creeping up quite a bit. That margin that I mentioned for risk, that starts creeping up quite a bit.
And if I want to pull out a HELOC, I still have to jump through all the hoops, right? I have to give you all of my information. It's just like I was qualifying for a home purchase.
It's almost exactly like a refi, a refi or purchase. Yeah, the big difference is, knock on wood, but most of my HELOCs haven't needed to do an appraisal.
Oh.
Yeah, they do an AVM, automated value.
Sure.
And if it comes in, then we're fine.
Then they'll forego it.
Then we don't need to. Above 80% loan to value, you're probably going to have to do one. But even then, if the AVM comes in strong, there's enough comparables in the area, then you'll be fine.
That makes me really nervous. And as your real estate professional, I wouldn't want you to pull out that much money anyways. I do want you to leave some equity in your property, just because you really should.
Yeah.
Like, let's be real. And a lot of times, when people have pulled money or they've refinanced multiple times, they get pissed when I tell them, well, you're only going to net X amount. And they're like, well, wait, what the heck happened? Well, I don't have any equity. Well, you had equity and you used it already, which is great. Like, I want you to do that. But you can't sit here and have your cake and eat it too. You can't have your equity once and then expect it again at the end of the day.
Yeah, when you go above that 80% loan to value, and you start looking at those rates, they're like in the 12s, 13s, depending on your credit score. So it gets pretty bad.
Okay.
So you got to be real careful. It has to be worth it. You know what I mean? Because at that point, if you see the killer deal investment property, and then your second's, $1,500, but you're making $2,500 from the rents, then that might make sense. But yeah, you'd have to crunch the numbers to make sure it makes sense, because you never know what's going to happen.
Which I highly recommend you do anyway. So,
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today and talking about HELOCs. I think this is a great opportunity, and it opens a door for people to at least start thinking about investing. So people who maybe haven't bought their first investment property or have been thinking about it, wanting to do it, not sure what they want to do, I think it's a great opportunity for them to kind of get their feet wet. And like you said, even if they just let it sit at zero balance, they at least have it there so that with every property that pops up, they can sit here and rerun the numbers, reach out to that agent in that area, have them, get them an analysis of what rents look like and what, if they need to fix it up, if anything, what that's going to cost them. So they know, they have everything in front of them. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And if something does come up, like, you know how it is when we need to fix the property up. It's going to cost $30,000. Sometimes it's 35 or
yes.
40.
Yes.
So when you have that extra room on the HELOC, you're like, okay, we'll just draw a little bit extra.
You're not as stressed. Or if you're like me and Josh is asking you for all this paperwork and I'm like, this is not my realm. I am not the paperwork person. I literally hire somebody on my team to do my paperwork for me.
Yeah.
I want to be talking to you. I want to be out in the field, but I don't want to do the paperwork. So Sweetie Pie's in charge of that. But anyways, thank you, my friend. I appreciate you.
Of course. My pleasure.